Ladies and gentlemen, federal employees, your health insurance, your FEHB is one of your best benefits. And taking it into retirement and knowing how it works in retirement can be critical to a great retirement or really, really bad in a bad retirement, okay? Long story short, it is really, really helpful to have an awesome retirement, to have great health insurance as you go into years where you're probably gonna have some of the most expensive medical issues of your life, as we all probably do or will when we hit our older ages. It's really important to have it. Now, there are a number of things that change with your health insurance in retirement, but there's a lot of things that do stay the same. So let's talk about it. So long story short, let's start with the things that stay the same. First, the price. This is one of the best pieces of your FEHB, your health insurance through the government as a federal employee, is that while working, the government pays, and this actually comes to the percentage piece, they pay about 75%-ish of your premium. So if you're paying, let's say, $250 a month, they're paying another $750, right? On top of what you're paying. So they continue to pay their portion of the premiums even in retirement, which is fantastic. So the price you have as a federal employee or a federal retiree, let's say, went in retirement is the same price that active federal employees have access to. You have the same prices, which is fantastic, okay? Now, one big thing that is also the same is open season. Some people think, incorrectly, that you can't change your plan once you're in retirement, and that's just not true. You can. Every single year, just like you have while working, you have an open season. In retirement, you can go in and make changes to your plan if you'd like to, even in retirement. Throughout retirement, every single year, you can do that. So those are all the things that are the same, which are fantastic, but there's a lot of things that do change. Number one, taxes. Taxes. Now, what does health insurance have to do with taxes? Well, this is what. Long story short, while working, your premiums come out pre-tax. In retirement, they come out post-tax. Now, let me explain what that means. Let's say your salary is $100,000. If you pay $5,000 a year in health insurance premiums, you're taxed as if you only made $95,000 in premium or in income, and because it was a tax deduction for those premiums. However, that tax deduction goes away in retirement. So in retirement, if your income is $100,000, then you're taxed on if you made $100,000, right? That tax deduction goes away. So while the price actually doesn't change in retirement, technically, the premium amount is the same. After tax, it does cost you a little bit more. So keep that in mind. Now, the next piece is you have to be eligible for it in retirement. Not all federal retirees can keep it. While working, if you're a federal employee, you can get on the health insurance. Anyone can, doesn't matter. In retirement, that is not the case. You have to be eligible to keep it into retirement. So what are the criteria? Well, number one, you have to have FEHB for the 5 years before you retire. 5 years before. Okay? So if you jumped off FEHB to get on, let's say your spouse's plan from a different employer, that's a problem, right? If you did that within 5 years of retirement, you need to have 5 years of continuous coverage before retirement. Now, there's a few exceptions to this rule. Number one, if your spouse is a federal employee and you were just on their FEHB, you're good. That counts. That'll work fine. And by the way, this 5 year doesn't have to be a single FEHB plan. You can change between different plans like Blue Cross or Aetna, Kaiser. You can change between the plans within the 5 years. You just have to be covered under a plan. A plan. Be under the FEHB umbrella during the 5 years, and then you're good to go. Also, TRICARE. If you're covered under TRICARE during the 5 years before, as long as you're on FEHB when you leave, then you can keep FEHB. Let me give an example. Let's say you were on TRICARE your entire career. You never had health insurance through the government as a civilian. You just had your TRICARE. By the way, if you don't know what TRICARE is, it's for military retirees. If it's not you, don't worry about it, okay? But if you had TRICARE your entire career, you jumped on FEHB, the open season before you retire, then boom, you can keep your health insurance as long as you had TRICARE for the 5 years before, okay? That's the first criteria to keep your health insurance into retirement, is have it for the 5 years before retirement. Actually, and one last exception that you want to keep in mind is that if you leave the government within that 5 year window, so let's say this is your retirement and this is the 5 years before, if you have a gap in service where you left the government, where you went to work for a private employer, whatever it may be, as long as the 5 years that you were working for the government before you retired, you had health insurance, then you're good to go. you are good to go. Okay, so for example, let's say you had a 2-year gap going to do something out in the private sector. As long as, let's say this was 3 years before retirement, then you had a 2-year gap, and then another 2 over here with the government. Again, as long as all the time with the government you had FEHB, you're good to go. Okay, so that's the 5-year rule. On top of the 5-year rule, you also have to have a full retirement. A full retirement. Now, let me run you through some of the full types of retirement. Now, if you're not familiar with the different types of federal retirements, I've got videos on all of these, by the way, so go check out them individually based on the ones you want to know, but let me just run you through them. There are what they call just full retirements, which this means if you've hit your minimum retirement age and have at least 30 years of service, that's a full retirement. Minimum retirement age is around 57. So if you have 30 years of federal service, minimum retirement age of 57, then you can retire with a full retirement, no problem. Or age 60 with 20 years, that's a full retirement. Or age 62 with 5 years, that's a full retirement as well. So if you've hit this and you've got 5 years of FEHB, then you're good to go. You can keep it into retirement. Also, there's other exceptions to that. For example, if you qualify under a VERA, an early out retirement, then you can keep FEHB into retirement. Also, there's a retirement called MRA plus 10. In that case, you can keep your FEHB into retirement as well. Okay, so those are all types of retirement that you can keep it into retirement. However, just so you know, a deferred retirement, if you're going out on a deferred retirement, you are not eligible to keep your FEHB. That goes away for good. Okay, now if you don't know what any of those are, just look them up. There's lots of details to each one of them, but I will keep it simple for now. Now, next, another other difference in retirement is survivor benefits. And that is if you pass away before your spouse and you're the federal employee, if you want them to be able to stay on your health insurance after you pass, that's not a free thing. They can't just do it automatically. So for example, let's say you here are the federal employee, okay, and your spouse is not a Fed. If you croak, okay, if you pass away and you want them to stay on your FEHB, you have to elect a survivor benefit to allow them to do it. Now, this election is made on your retirement application. So if you're not retired yet, you're good. You don't have to make this yet. But on the retirement application, you have to elect a survivor benefit, and it costs money. It costs money. I've got whole videos on the survivor benefits. You can check that out. Just know that if you want your spouse to be able to stay on your insurance after you pass away, if you pass away first, it costs money. So go check that out. Last but not least, another difference in retirement is Medicare. Now, for most federal employees, Medicare is not a requirement, but for some it is. For example, if you are a postal worker, USPS, for many of you, it's a requirement, and it depends on when you retired and when you were born and such to determine if you are required to get on Medicare as a federal employee. But if you're USPS and haven't retired yet, you probably will be required to. I've got whole videos on Medicare, how it works with your benefits. You can check those out. Also, if you are on TRICARE and you want to keep your TRICARE, you are required to be on Medicare. Okay, required. Now, if you're not USPS and you're not TRICARE, at least as of today, federal employees are not required to be on Medicare. That could change in the future, but as of today, that's not the case. So you have the option to get on Medicare if you'd like to. You don't have to though. And by the way, I've got whole videos on whether or not you should or not, right? You can check those out in more details, but I just wanted to mention here because that is a difference. So those are the key differences between your health insurance while working and in retirement. Hope that's helpful. Again, there's a lot of details here in each one of these different things. You can check out my individual videos that I have for each one of those. I hope it's helpful. Hopefully it gives you the answers you need to be confident in your federal retirement, and I'll see you guys in the next video.